The screaming of the crowd was a physical thing, a wall of sound that hit Ambassador Ilara Vance like a pressure wave as she was jostled against the polished flank of her limousine. Smoke, acrid and chemical, stung her eyes. A bottle shattered on the pavement, spraying glass like icy confetti. This was not how her historic address to the Unified Earth Senate was supposed to end. Her head of security, Kale, roared, his body a shield between her and the seething mass of humanity. The protest against the Dragonkin trade accord had turned violent. Xenolover! Someone shrieked the word a dagger meant for her heart. Ilara stumbled, her heel catching on the curb. As Kyle hauled her upright, her gaze snagged on a small, grimy face peering from a storm drain grate across the barricaded street. A child, human with wide, ash-smudged eyes that held no fear, only a profound, weary curiosity. Their eyes locked for a fractured second. Then as a flashbang grenade detonated, filling the air with blinding light and disorientation, the child vanished. In that fleeting connection, Ilara didn't see a protester or a victim. She saw an echo. It was a feeling that followed her into the secure vehicle, a ghost of a memory that had no place in the chaos. As the limousine sped away from the riot, leaving the cacophony behind, Ilara clutched her left hand with her right. Her thumb found the smooth, warm metal of her ring, hidden beneath her glove. It was a simple band of Drakthor alloy, a metal that wept tiny, shimmering tears of light when touched by someone who truly loved its wearer. It had not wept in 7 years. She closed her eyes, and the child's face superimposed itself over another, a face with delicate, opalescent scales and eyes like liquid amber. The mystery of that child's calm amidst the storm would not leave her. It was the first thread, pulled from a tapestry she thought was complete. Ilara Vance's apartment in the Arcology Spire was a monument to quiet despair. 120 floors above the teeming, neon-drenched megacity of New Shanghai 2, it was a bubble of sterile luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows presented a breathtaking, soulless panorama of floating traffic lanes and holographic advertisements that bled color across the perpetual twilight. Inside, the silence was absolute, broken only by the hum of the life support systems. The decor was minimalist, all cool grays and muted blues, curated by an AI to promote tranquil productivity. It felt less like a home and more like a very elegant cell. She stood at the window, having exchanged her torn diplomatic suit for a simple gray tunic. The riot replayed in her mind, but it was the child's face that lingered. She was Earth's foremost xenodiplomat, the woman who had brokered peace with the silicon-based sentience of Proxima, who had untangled the trade wars with the aquatic Alo. Her career was a string of hard-won victories that felt increasingly like beautifully carved tombstones. The Dragonkin Accord was her masterpiece, a complex, fragile pact with the most fearsome and proud species humanity had yet encountered, towering reptilian humanoids from the high-gravity world of Draconis, Prime. It was also the most hated. To the public, the Dragonkin were the scaled empire, monsters from pre-human nightmares. News feeds played looping footage of their warriors, clad in ornate battleplate, their maws filled with sharp teeth. They didn't show the philosophical debates in their crystalline libraries, the mournful resonant songs they composed for extinct stars, or the way an elder's scales could flush with gentle, paternal colors when speaking to a youngling. Ilara knew. She had lived among them for 3 years as an exchange envoy. She had learned their complex scent and posture-based language, and she had loved one of them. His name was Tarn, a scholar, not a warrior. His scales were the color of weathered bronze shot through with veins of deep cobalt. He spoke of cosmic poetry and the silent music of gravitational waves. He'd given her the ring on her birthday, under the triple moons of Draconis. "It is not a chain," he'd rumbled, his voice a vibration she felt in her bones. "It is a witness. It will remember my love when I cannot be there to show it." A week later, a faction of Dragonkin traditionalists, opposing the Human Alliance, had bombed the Cultural Exchange Center. Tarn was listed among the missing, presumed atomized. No body was ever found. Ilara had been recalled to Earth, her heart a closed-off ruin, her ring silent and dry. She was called the Dragon's Widow behind her back, a title of pity and suspicion. Her personal AI, a soft light in the ceiling, chimed. "Ambassador, your 21 debrief with the Security Council is prepared. The data stream from the riot has been analyzed. Anomaly detected." "What anomaly?" Ilara asked, her voice hollow. A minor energy signature, inconsistent with protester munitions, was recorded at your location prior to the flashbang. It matches low-level non-regulation stealth technology. Scans also indicate the storm drain in question leads to the Undercity. The Undercity. The crumbling, labyrinthine world beneath the polished megacity, where the failed climate migrations had settled decades ago. A lawless place of forgotten people. A place a child might call home.
And the child?
Alara's throat was tight. No identification. Facial recognition yielded 0 matches in citizen databases. A ghost like her. Cancel my debrief, Alara said, a sudden, fierce resolve cutting through her numbness. Tell them I'm assessing grassroots opposition dynamics personally. Ambassador. Protocol strongly advises against override. Authorization Vance Alpha 7. And get me a discreet ground car. Nothing from the motor pool. She pulled on a dark, nondescript jacket.
As she did, she touched the ring beneath her glove.
It was warm. It was always warm. A phantom body heat that never faded. She didn't know if it was a property of the metal or her own desperate imagination. Tonight that warmth felt like a compass needle, tugging her down into the dark. The descent from the spire to the Undercity was a journey backward through time. The clean lines and humming energy of the upper levels gave way to dripping concrete, tangled cables, and the thick, warm smell of recycled air, fungus, and humanity. Alara's vehicle, a beat-up electrocrawler, moved through narrow, shadowy canyons where makeshift dwellings were built into old subway tunnels and loading bays. Flickering hollow signs advertised cheap synth protein and neural dives. Faces wary and worn watched her pass from the darkness. Her guide was a grizzled, one-eyed fixer named Moss, who Kale had strongly suggested she hire. You looking for a kid, ma'am? Moss grunted, steering around a pile of rusting machinery. A lot of kids down here. Most are ghosts. You sure about this? I'm sure, Alara said, her eyes scanning every alley, every face. She showed him a cleaned-up still from her limousine's external camera. The girl's face, wide-eyed and smudged. Moss's one good eye narrowed. Huh, seen her? Or one like her. They call her Cinder. Stays near the old geothermal vents, east side. Runs with a scav pack. Doesn't talk much. He gave her a sidelong glance. You're that diplomat. The one on the news. The one they throw bottles at. Yes. And you're down here alone looking for a gutter rat. Why? Alara met his gaze. Because she looked at me, and she didn't see an ambassador or a traitor. She just saw me. Moss was silent for a long moment, then nodded. All right, then. East side it is. The geothermal sector was a cathedral of industrial decay. Massive. Corroded pipes wound through the cavernous space like the intestines of a dead god, hissing steam and painting everything in a damp, warm film. Patches of bioluminescent fungus glowed an eerie blue on the walls. The only true light. It was here, near a hissing vent that smelled of sulfur and hot metal, that Alara saw her again. Cinder was smaller than she'd seemed from the car, maybe 8 years old. She was dressed in patched-together thermal gear, her hair a matted tangle. She wasn't alone. She was carefully using a bent piece of rebar to tend to a small, struggling cluster of real tomatoes growing in a cracked hydroponic tray, illuminated by a single salvaged sun lamp. The care in her movements was profound, a tiny act of defiance against the encompassing decay. Alara approached slowly, holding her hands out. Moss hung back, a shadow in the steam. Hello, Alara said, her voice soft. Cinder didn't startle. She looked up, those same unnervingly calm eyes taking Alara in. She saw the fine material of the jacket, the clean lines of her boots. You're the lady from the shiny car, Cinder stated. No fear, no awe, just a fact. Yes, my name is Alara. You looked right at me during all that noise. You fell, Cinder said, a simple observation. Your man picked you up. She went back to her tomatoes, gently propping up a sagging stem. Alara knelt, ignoring the damp seeping into her pants. What's your name? Cinder. That's a good name, strong. Alara paused. Why were you up there, Cinder? It was dangerous. The girl shrugged, a small bony movement. Looking for shiny things. Sometimes people drop good stuff when they run. Found a half-charged glow stick. She pulled a dimly glowing tube from her pocket as proof. Then her eyes drifted to Alara's hands. She was still wearing her gloves. Alara, following her gaze, slowly pulled off the left glove. The Drakthor ring gleamed in the fungal light. Its subtle internal shimmer like captured starlight. Cinder froze. Her eyes went huge. She dropped the rebar with a clatter. She took a stumbling step forward, her breath catching. She pointed a tiny, grimy finger at the ring. "Mrs. Dragon," she whispered. The title filled with a shocking, intimate recognition. "My mom has a ring like that." The world stopped. The hiss of the vents faded to a distant roar in Ilara's ears. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, caged bird. "My mom has a ring like that." The words made no sense. They were impossible. Drakthor alloy was non-replicable, bonded on a quantum level to its recipient. Only a Dragonkin mastersmith could craft it. Tarn had said hers was one of a kind. "Cinder," Ilara said, her voice trembling. "Where is your mom?" The girl's face, so calm before, crumpled. A vulnerability flashed through, raw and painful. "She's sick. The bad air, the rot in the walls. She sleeps most of the time. She told me not to tell anyone. Not ever." Tears welled in her eyes. "But your ring, it looks like hers. It sings the same quiet song." Ilara felt a tear trace its own path down her cheek. Without thinking, she reached out. Cinder, after a heartbeat of hesitation, took her hand. The girl's hand was small, cold, and rough. The moment their skin touched, the Drakthor ring on Ilara's finger gave a soft, palpable pulse. A single perfect tear of liquid light welled from its seam and traced a shimmering path down the metal. Cinder gasped. "Yours cries too. Mom's does when she holds my hand." Ilara was weeping openly now, great silent sobs shaking her frame. 7 years of grief, of frozen solitude shattered in an instant. This was not a coincidence. It could not be. "Take me to her," Ilara begged, her voice raw. "Please, Cinder. Take me to your mother." Moss stepped forward, his face unreadable. "Ma'am, this is a trap or a fantasy. You know that, right?" Ilara looked at him, her eyes blazing with a fire he hadn't seen before. "I don't care. This is the only thing that has mattered in 7 years. Lead the way, Cinder." The girl nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve. She took one last worried look at her tomatoes, then gestured deeper into the maze of pipes and steam. "This way. It's a secret." Cinder led them through a crack in the cavern wall so narrow Ilara had to turn sideways, into a hidden service tunnel long forgotten by the city's maintenance grids. The air grew cooler, drier. They climbed a precarious ladder missing several rungs, and emerged into a small vault-like chamber. It was an old utility node, but someone had made it a home. A patched sleeping bag lay on a foam pallet. Shelves made from crates held meager supplies: water purifier tablets, protein packs, a few dog-eared paper books, a priceless treasure down here. A small battery-powered heater glowed faintly. On the pallet, curled under a thermal blanket, was a figure. Even in the dim light, Ilara could see it was not a human woman. The blanket draped over a form that was too long, its contours all wrong. A slender, scaly hand lay limp on the floor, the fingers tipped with short, blunted claws. The scales were sickly, a dull, muted grayish-green, lacking their natural luster. Cinder ran to the figure kneeling beside her. "Mama, Mama, wake up! A nice lady is here. She has a ring like yours." Ilara approached as if in a dream, each step heavy with a world-breaking potential. Moss drew his sidearm, holding it low, his body tense. "Ambassador." "Stand down, Kyle," Ilara murmured, using her security chief's name by mistake. She was utterly focused. The figure on the pallet stirred. A low pain sound like a rusty hinge came from it. The blanket shifted and a head lifted. Ilara's heart stopped. The face was gaunt, the scales peeling and dull. The magnificent cranial crest that had once framed Tarn's head like a crown was now broken and frayed. One of the liquid amber eyes was milky, blind. But the other eye focused on Ilara, and in its depths a spark flickered. A spark of impossible, universe-defying recognition. It was Tarn, but not the Tarn she remembered. This was a shattered remnant. And as the blanket fell away further, Ilara saw the reason for Cinder's word choice, for the impossibility of it all. Tarn's body, once powerfully built, was emaciated, and there, in the hollow of his midsection, were the faint, long-healed but unmistakable, biological signatures of a Draco female who had carried an egg. A hybrid egg. The pieces slammed together with the force of a starship impact. Tarn hadn't died in the bombing. He'd been taken hidden. He'd transitioned, a rare, deeply personal process for Dragonkin, one he had never discussed with her but had alluded to in his poetic way. A journey to embrace another song within oneself. He had become female, and she had borne a child. Their child. Conceived before the attack. El-Ara? The voice was a ravaged whisper. The cadence, the vocal texture, so hauntingly familiar yet entirely different. It was Tarn's soul speaking through a stranger's ruined throat. El-Ara collapsed to her knees beside the pallet, her hands flying to her mouth. A torrent of emotions, disbelief, horror, soul-crushing pity, and a wild, soaring joy threatened to tear her apart. She reached out a trembling hand, not knowing where to touch, how to bridge this impossible gap. Tarn, oh stars. Tarn, is it really you? The scaled hand lifted, shaking, and found hers. The moment their skin met, the Drakthor ring on Tarn's finger, a twin to Alara's but thinner, more delicate, burst into a silent symphony of weeping light. Tears of gold and amber and copper flowed freely, dripping onto the dirty floor. Alara's own ring responded in kind, their luminescent tears mingling. I found my way. Back to you, Tarn whispered, each word a monumental effort. They took me. Traditionalists wanted to make an example. I escaped, came here, to find you. But the illness, the planet sickness, it caught me. I had to hide, to protect our Kithera. Her good eye moved to Cinder, filled with a love so immense it was a physical presence in the room. Kithera, dragonkin word for heart song made flesh, offspring. Elara looked from Tarn's ravaged face to Cinder's worried human-like one. She saw it now, the subtle hint of a epicanthic fold that wasn't quite human, the unusual resilience in the child's eyes, the way she had calmed a storm with her gaze, a hybrid, a miracle. Their daughter. Cinder, Elara breathed. My human name, the girl said softly, crawling closer. She took both their hands, linking them together in her small ones. Mama's dragonkin name for me is Kalen. She looked at Elara. It means hope that survives the fire. The name, so close to her security chiefs, felt like a cosmic signpost. Elara pulled both of them, her lost love, her found daughter, into a desperate, gentle embrace. Tarn's body was fever-hot and frail, her scent a heartbreaking mix of remembered musk and the sour tang of disease. Moss slowly holstered his weapon, his face a mask of stunned comprehension. Well, I'll be damned. The dragon's widow, and the dragon. The moment of reunion was shattered by a high-pitched whine from above. A disc-shaped drone, black and unmarked, dropped silently from a ventilation shaft, a red targeting laser painting Alara's chest. A synthetic voice echoed in the chamber. Ambassador Vance, you are in violation of quarantine protocols. The biological entity is a Category 5 xenopathological hazard. Stand aside for sterilization. Moss shouted, shoving Elara down as a searing blue. Energy bolt scorched the wall where she'd been kneeling. This wasn't a protester. This was a professional Black Ops kill team. The traditionalists hadn't just hidden Tarn. They'd left a sleeper, protocol or someone on Earth, had discovered her and deemed her existence a threat to the Accord. The stakes were no longer about diplomacy or grief. They were about extermination. Tarn tried to rise, a protective snarl tearing from her weak frame. Run, take her. Run! Alara's mind, honed by decades of crisis negotiation, clicked into a cold, clear gear. The love in her heart transformed into a diamond-hard resolve. She was not leaving here without her family. She looked at Moss. Get them out. The way we came. I'll draw its fire. Ma'am, you can't. That's an order. Elara snapped. The voice of Earth's lead diplomat, ringing with absolute authority. She grabbed a piece of rusted metal and hurled it at the drone, drawing its laser away from the pallet. Go! Moss didn't hesitate again. He scooped up Tarn as if she weighed nothing, the dragonkin crying out in pain. Cinder clung to his leg, her eyes wide with terror but her mouth set in a determined line. They vanished back into the crack in the wall as another energy bolt sizzled past Alara's head. She was alone, facing a killing machine, in the home her love had built for their child. And for the first time in 7 years, she felt no fear, only a terrifying, perfect purpose. The escape through the Undercity was a harrowing blur of shadows, shouts, and the ever-present threat of the hunter drone and its unseen controllers. Moss carried Tarn through the labyrinthine tunnels with a strength born of desperation, Cinder scrambling ahead, her intimate knowledge of the terrain their only advantage. Elara followed, her diplomatic facade utterly shed, replaced by the primal focus of a protector. They finally found temporary refuge in a flooded sub-basement. the stagnant water up to their knees. Hidden behind a waterfall of leaky pipes, the drone's whine echoed somewhere in the distance, searching. Here in the dank, dripping dark, the emotional reality of the situation crashed over them. Tarn lay on a dryish crate, shivering violently. The brief exertion had taken a catastrophic toll. Her breathing was a wet, ragged sound. "Mama," Cinder whispered, pressing her small hands against Tarn's feverish face. "I am here, little flame," Tarn rasped, her voice barely audible. Her good eye found Alara in the gloom.
I am so sorry.
"I wanted to come home. To you. This is not the song I wish to sing for you." Alara knelt in the water, not caring about the ruin of her clothes. She took Tarn's hand again, the rings weeping their silent tears, mingling with the dank water. "You survived. You found a way. You kept our daughter safe. You sang the most beautiful, most impossible song in the universe." Her tears were hot and free-flowing now. "I thought you were gone. I built a tomb for you in my heart and called it my life." A tremor that was not from illness went through Tarn's frame. The bombing. It was a cover. "They took me to a black site on one of our moons. They said my love for you was a genetic sickness, that they could purify me." She coughed, a horrible, wrenching sound. "But I carried Archithera. She was my truth, my rebellion. I escaped when I was heavy with her, came to the only place I knew you might be. This city. But your world, its microbes, its air, my body, changed as it was, had no defense. I became this ghost." Alara listened, her heart breaking and mending with every word. She looked at Cinder. "How did you—" "I found her," Cinder said softly, curling against Tarn's side. 2 years ago, in the deep tunnels. She was already sick. She taught me words, how to read the old books, how to grow things. She told me stories about the stars, and about a human lady with a kind face and a ring that cries. She looked at Alara, a universe of longing in her young eyes. "She said you were the bravest person in the world, that you might be too far away to find us, but that we had to be brave too." The weight of the child's words, the years of survival and hidden love, was almost too much to bear. Alara reached out and drew Cinder into the embrace. So the three of them were connected, a broken circle finally made whole. "I failed you both," Alara choked out. "I should have looked harder. I should never have stopped." "No," Tarn insisted with surprising force. Her clawed hand tightened on Ilara's. "You built a bridge between our worlds, our daughter. She is that bridge. She is the future the Accord was meant to create. You must protect that future, even if I am not in it." "Don't you dare," Alara said, her voice fierce. "I just found you. We are getting out of here, all of us." Moss, who had been keeping watch at the entrance, spoke up, his voice grim. "We can't stay. That drone's got thermal sweep. It'll find this heat signature soon." He looked at Tarn, then at Alara. "Ma'am, she needs advanced medtech. Dragonkin tech. Nothing in a human hospital can treat that." Ilara's mind raced. The official channels were compromised. The kill order proved that. The Dragonkin embassy was heavily guarded and monitored. But there was one possibility, a person whose loyalty was not to governments but to oaths. "Kyle," she said, her head of security, former special forces, a man who had saved her life 6 times and whose disappointment in her personal withdrawal had been a quiet, constant ache. "We need to get to my private shuttle pad at the spire. Can we get back up?" Moss grinned, a feral, reckless expression. "I know a way. Smuggler's route. Go straight up a coolant shaft to the mid-levels. It's a climb. And it's hot." Alara looked at Tarn's frail form, at Cinder's determined but small body. "We don't have a choice." She turned to Tarn. "Can you hold on? For her? For us?" Tarn's amber eye gleamed. She touched Cinder's cheek, then Alara's. "For my heart song. I can climb a mountain of stars." The ascent was a journey through hell. The coolant shaft was a vertical tunnel of roaring, scorching air, filled with the deafening whine of ancient turbines. They used a maintenance ladder, rusted and missing rungs. Moss carried Tarn on his back, secured with straps from their gear. Alara went below Cinder, guiding the girl's feet, pushing her upward when she faltered, her own muscles screaming in protest. The heat was blistering, sucking the moisture from their throats, making the metal sear to the touch. Halfway up, Cinder froze, her small body trembling with exhaustion and terror. I can't I'm going to fall. Ilara, just below her, looked up. She saw not just a frightened child, but her daughter, hanging between two worlds, between a hidden past and an impossible future. Look at me, Kaylin, she said, using her true name for the first time. The girl looked down, tears cutting clean lines through the grime on her face. You are your mother's daughter, Ilara said, her voice carrying over the roar. You are hope that survives the fire. This is the fire. Now survive. One rung at a time. For her, for me, something shifted in Cinder's eyes. The fear didn't vanish, but it was joined by a fierce, inherited stubbornness. She nodded and reached for the next rung. When they finally collapsed onto a service gantry in the mid-levels, they were burned, exhausted, and breathing in ragged gasps. But they were together. And above them, through a grated vent, Ilara could see the familiar, clean lines of the Arcology's central utility spine. They were close. As they caught their breath, Tarn, barely conscious, reached for Ilara's hand. Her voice was the faintest whisper. The ring, it never forgot you. Every day, it wept for me. A river of light. For the love I carried. Ilara brought Tarn's scaly hand to her lips, kissing it gently, tasting salt and metal and a memory of another world. We're going home, she promised, though she didn't yet know what that word meant. Bypassing the main entrances, they used Ilara's ambassador-level biometrics to access a secured maintenance elevator that went straight to her private shuttle pad on the spire's pinnacle. The journey up was tense and silent. Every second, Ilara expected alarms to blare, for security doors to slam shut. They emerged onto the windswept landing pad. Her personal diplomatic shuttle, a sleek Delta-winged craft, gleamed under the artificial moonlight. The city sprawled below them like a galaxy laid on its side. The air was clean and cold. Almost there, Ilara breathed, supporting Tarn as Moss scouted ahead. Halt, Ambassador. The voice was familiar, cold, and professional. Kale stepped from behind the shuttle's landing strut, a pulse pistol held steady in his hand, but it wasn't pointed at her. It was pointed at Tarn and Cinder. 4 other black-clad agents fanned out behind him, weapons raised. Ilara's blood turned to ice. Kale, what is this? My duty, ma'am, he said, his face a mask of regret but his eyes unwavering. I intercepted the Black Op drone's feed. I know what you found. That entity, he gestured to Tarn, is a walking bioweapon. Its very presence on Earth violates a dozen interstellar treaties. The child is an unclassified genetic anomaly. Their existence, if revealed, will destroy the Dragonkin Accord. Panic, revulsion? It will make today's riot look like a picnic. She is not an it, Ilara snarled, stepping in front of her family. Her name is Tarn. She is my bonded. And this is our daughter, Kaylin. They are my family. Kale flinched, but his weapon didn't waver. Your family died 7 years ago, Ambassador. These are ghosts, and ghosts must be laid to rest for the good of both our species. Please, step aside. They will be taken to a secure facility. It will be painless. Cinder clung to Tarn's leg, staring at Kale with betrayed recognition. Moss slowly moved his hand toward his own weapon. Ilara saw it all, the shuttle so close. The man she trusted pointing a gun at her heart's reason for beating. The cold logical argument for genocide. She had spent her life building bridges with words. Now words had failed. She did the only thing she could. She appealed not to the soldier, but to the man. She slowly, deliberately pulled off her glove. She held up her left hand, the Drakthor ring shimmering. Kale, you've served me for 10 years. You've seen me grieve. You've seen me become a ghost in a glass tower. Look at this ring. He did, his eyes flicking to it. It is made of a metal that weeps for love, she said, her voice clear and strong over the wind. It has been dry for 7 years. Until tonight. When I found them, it wept. When I touch her, it weeps. When our daughter joins our hands, they weep together. She took Tarn's hand, and as before, the rings shimmered with liquid light. This is not a political problem. This is not a biological hazard. This is love that survived bombing, captivity, transformation, sickness, and the depths of a forgotten city. You are asking me to condemn the only true beautiful thing I have ever helped create. You are asking me to kill hope itself. She took a step forward into the line of fire. So if you must lay ghosts to rest, you start with me. Because I would rather be a ghost with them than a living woman in the world you want to preserve. Kale's jaw tightened. The gun trembled just slightly. He looked from Ilara's fierce, tear-streaked face to the ring's pouring light. to the tiny hybrid child watching him, to the broken dragonkin who stared back with a dignity that defied her condition. He saw the truth. He saw the bridge. With a curse that was also a sigh of surrender, Kale lowered his weapon. He turned to his stunned team. "Stand down. Weapons cold." "Sir, our orders," one agent began. "Are now superseded by mine," Kyle said, his voice regaining its command tone. "Secure the perimeter. Prepare the shuttle for immediate launch. Ambassador-level diplomatic quarantine protocols. We are taking them to the only place that can help." He looked at Alara. "The Dragonkin Embassy." Alara's breath left her in a rush. "Kale!" "You're not the only one who believed in the Accord." "Ma'am?" he said, a hint of his old respect returning to his eyes. "I just didn't know it was this personal. Let's get your family home." The final sprint was a blur of activity. Kyle's team became their protectors, helping Moss carry Tarn into the shuttle's medbay. Ilara strapped Cinder into a seat, the girl's eyes wide as she looked at the plush interior. As the shuttle engines whined to life, a new alarm blared. "Security Council override." The Spire's defensive turrets began powering up, tracking them. The Black Op controllers had called in official channels. "Punch it!" Kale yelled to the pilot. The shuttle shot forward just as the first turret fired. A magenta energy beam slicing through the air where they'd been. They dove off the pad, dropping into the canyon of the city before arcing up. Alert screamed, "Missile lock." "Evasive pattern Zeta!" Kale barked. The shuttle jerked and spun, weaving between skyscrapers. Alara held Cinder tight, her eyes locked on the medbay door. Hold on. They cleared the city limits, shooting out over the dark ocean. 2 Council interceptors fell in behind them, demanding their surrender. Then a new voice crackled over the comm. Deep, resonant, and unmistakably Dragonkin. "Unidentified human vessel. This is Draconis Prime Guardianship Song of Vengeance. You are approaching restricted diplomatic airspace. Explain your trajectory." Alara grabbed the comm. She spoke in fluent, formal Dragonkin, the language of her heart. "Song of Vengeance. This is Ambassador Alara Vance. I am aboard. I carry with me Tarniv's Coriel, scholar of the 7th Crystal Library, bonded of my soul. She is gravely injured. I also carry our Kithara, Kalen. We request sanctuary and urgent medical aid under Article 1 of the Accord, the right of bonded kin." There was a long, static-filled silence. Then the Dragonkin voice returned, thick with emotion. "We read Tarn's life signature. The song, it was thought lost. The Accord is fulfilled in ways we did not foresee. Ambassador, welcome home. The interceptors behind you will be discouraged." From the darkness of orbit, a beam of emerald energy lanced down, painting a harmless but terrifying warning grid between the shuttle and the pursuing human fighters. The fighters peeled away, their mission impossible. The shuttle, escorted now by 2 sleek Dragonkin fighters with wings like folded lightning, soared upwards towards the massive, organic-shaped vessel hanging in high orbit. Towards safety. Towards home. 1 month later, Ilara stood on an observation deck of the Dragonkin Orbital Hospice, a place of soft, gentle light and humming, harmonious technology. The view was not of Earth, but of the stars, sharp and clear. Tarn lay on a restorative bed, her scales no longer dull, but gaining back their bronze and cobalt luster. The advanced biotech of her people had fought the planetary sickness to a stalemate. She would never be the strong scholar of before, but she was alive and her eye was clear. In her hand she held a data crystal, composing again. Cinder, Kalen, sat at a low table, a Dragonkin tutor alongside her. She was learning to write in the flowing glyphs of her mother's people. Her tongue stuck out in concentration. She wore a tunic that blended human and Dragonkin design. She was safe, celebrated even as a living symbol of unity. The rings on Alara and Tarn's fingers were quiet now, their light a steady, contented glow. They had wept their joy. Now they basked in it. The political fallout on Earth had been massive, but not the catastrophe Kale feared. The image of the 2 rings weeping light, leaked by a source, had become an icon. The story of love surviving against all odds had softened hearts. The Dragonkin, for their part, were furious at the traditionalist faction that had harmed. Tarn were now offering unprecedented concessions. The Accord was stronger, but more fragile. Its foundation no longer just politics, but a very real, very personal bond. Ilara was now a permanent liaison, her role forever changed. She had lost her earthly title, her sterile apartment, her life of lonely victory. She had gained everything. Tarn looked up from her crystal, her good eye meeting Ilara's. The silent music is loud today. She rumbled softly. A new melody, one I have never heard before. Ilara came to her side, taking her hand. What does it sound like? Like a child's laugh, Tarn said, looking at Kaelin. Like a second chance. Like a bridge finally crossed. Kaelin looked up and smiled, a human smile that held the warmth of a dragonkin's sun. She held up her tablet. On it she had written 2 words, one in dragonkin glyphs, one in human script. They meant the same thing. Family. Kithara. The story for now was complete. The lost were found. The broken were healing. The bridge was built not between worlds, but through a single extraordinary heart. But as Ilara looked out at the infinite stars, a final subtle hint lingered. The dragonkin elder who had welcomed them had taken her aside. Tarn spoke of her captors, the elder had said, his scent colors troubled. She said they were not just traditionalists. They asked her questions about you, Ilara, about human genetic markers. They were not just trying to destroy a bond. They were trying to understand how it was made. He had given her another data crystal, encrypted, found in Tarn's old effects. The key to this, the elder had said, his great head dipping low, lies not in our past but in yours. In the genes of your daughter, and in the reason why a faction that hates hybrids would be so desperate to create one. The crystal now lay in Ilara's pocket, cool and heavy, a final mystery, humming with silent potential energy. The song of their family had found its harmony, but somewhere in the dark between the stars, a discordant note had been struck long ago, and its echo was just now reaching them. Their future was secure, but their past, it seemed, still held one last shocking secret. Ilara squeezed Tarn's hand, feeling the warm, steadfast metal of her ring. They had survived the fire. Now they would need to uncover the spark that started it.